Welcome to episode 13 of The Woo. I am joined today by none other than my insecurity bae, the Reed bae, the everything bae. Hi,
Oh, girl.
Crissle.
Hi, friend. Thank you so much for having me on your program. I'm so excited to
Of
be here.
course. Thank you for being down. I know that Crissle, you'll join your friends, like those of us when we have our little crazy episodes.
Oh,
But for the most part, you're not really someone who does like a lot of interviews. Have you?
Well,
I feel like I don't see a lot of them.
No, well, because first of all, to talk about what? Like,
To talk about yourself. You know how the internet loves questions.
oh, no. What? So, if I'm not, no, I really don't. I don't do a lot of interviews unless it's to talk about something I'm actually working on.
Right, something specific that you have to amplify. Right. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Rest of this, niggas don't care about no deep dive into my life.
Me, I'm so today.
Just kidding. That's exactly what we're gonna do, and it's going to be amazing.
Exactly what we're gonna do, and it's gonna be super amazing. So my first prompt, because I was telling Crissle, this is not an interview show. We really just chill on here and have conversation. But my first question to you, first of all, is how are you feeling these days? How's your heart feeling?
Wow. Realizing now that I should have meditated before we did this.
You already know. Where's the sage?
I should have known Fran was going to go straight into the feelings.
Fran was going to go Fran.
I am feeling a lot of different things, but mainly I'm pretty okay. I feel like I am... I don't even want to say it out loud because I'm a jinx it, but I keep feeling like I'm so close to like this big breakthrough. And even my therapist calls it like this final push. She's like, there's just this final push that you're really working on. And I just want to push that hoe so bad. I just want to get there. So I'm feeling, like slowly I am getting to this place of like, being the parent that I needed and the caretaker that I still need. But other than that, yeah, it's, things are going.
That must be so affirming too, to have your therapist who you've been working with for how many years now?
4.5.
4.5 years affirm the changes, the evolution, like the work you've been integrating. That's gotta feel amazing.
Yeah, and it's so helpful because she really reminds me of how much things have changed for me, how much I have grown, because it's very easy for me to get stuck in like the day-to-day of doing all this mental health work and
not zooming out.
Yeah, not seeing the forest for the trees and all that. So it's very helpful.
Would you say that your sessions with her, is that what kind of got you interested in the mental health field, or was this something that was just kind of always there?
Oh, no, it was definitely going to therapy that made me want to get this degree in therapy. It was 100% my experiences working with her that made me want to do this, because I was like,
this is life-changing work.
Right. Like, and there's clearly something to it. Like, I think growing up, I heard a lot of therapy. Why would you need therapy if you have friends? You just gonna pay somebody to be your friend, pay somebody to listen to you talk about your problems. Like, if that's all it was, then no, that would be asinine. But that is not, therapy is a skill. There's science behind it to back it up, or at least there should be. Not all therapists are
equipped.
Yes. And a lot of therapists will abandon practices that have data to back them up. And I'm thinking of people who do it in a hateful way. Like I'm thinking of like conversion therapy and stuff like that. Oh, goodness.
Right.
Not necessarily the girls who are like
me.
I mean, yeah, I didn't want to say that, but
the spiritual hose.
Yes. Sometimes it can go in that direction with the rainwater hose that are like,
Hi,
let's just
hi.
massage this tree bark and think about
Yes.
our past selves. And it's like, okay, sweetie, nobody's doing that. But
Shout
but
out to us.
yeah. But I mean, therapy is a real, it's a skill. It's something you build up, and it's something that you get to really make your own. That's, I think, one of the best things about therapy is you get to pick the therapeutical approaches that work best for you. So you get to really mix and match. I think most therapists have an integrated practice where they don't strictly adhere to any one thing,
Mm.
um, any one specific like way of practicing. So yeah, but it was absolutely my work with her. And so of course over the past couple of years being in school, I've just randomly had these moments of that's what you've been doing to me. Like
You're like, now I see it. I
now
see
I
the
see what you've
plan.
been doing. I see your unconditional positive regard, Miss Lady.
That's so cool. So
It
here's my
is.
question, especially for people who are interested in either, studying the fields or even looking into therapy for themselves. Because I know there's different types of treatments. And it's like, how do you know? Because there's no buffet style where you can kind of like, well, I guess you could if you have the time and the intention to test out
Mhm.
different treatments, But I wonder, like, how do you know? How does one know the best form? Because I know there's like talk therapy and then there's certain like trauma treatments that are different. Like, how would
Mhm.
someone know which one would serve them best?
Well, I think a lot of that is based on the therapists themselves. There are certain disorders or issues that people have where you do need to talk to somebody who is specifically informed with whatever that disorder or issue may be.
Right.
But I think a lot of it is up to the therapist. And if the therapist is not able to adjust their approach to where the client is, then you need to find a different therapist.
Got you.
Yeah. So for me, my therapist is very person centered. It's a lot of, like I said, unconditional positive regard, where she's giving me the things that I needed to pull me out of this psychological. I think emotionally, I have been stuck at like about age 10 since I was
Hello.
age 10.
Nine over here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
So you realize like you're this 35-year-old with a 10-year-old mindset and
Mm-hmm.
being triggered by things that were triggering you when you were in the fourth grade. And it's like, oh shit.
Like, I should do something about
So,
that.
but yeah, like for me, so I think it's from the client side of things, it's being open to telling the therapist, like, I don't think this is a good fit for me, or I don't think this is working for me. I wouldn't necessarily say I'm not feeling better after sessions, because let's be real, a lot of times in therapy, you will not feel better. But you
There's a
should
lot to
feel,
process.
yeah, you
Yeah.
should feel challenged. You should feel like you're getting something out of it. You should feel like you're moving in a different direction, or that you're experiencing things differently. You're starting to think about things differently, that kind of thing. But you should be getting something out of it. And I think within a couple of sessions, you'll know that. I started crying about
Right.
20 minutes into meeting this lady. So
Was she your first? Like, where you were like, I'm going to therapy, you made the appointment and it was her and you just
Mhm.
had that luck where it was like love at first sight,
Yeah.
low key?
Yep,
That's amazing.
Here in New York, she was. Shout out to Therapy for Black Girls. Shout out to Dr. Joy.
Is that where you found your
Because, yep,
therapist?
I went to Therapy for Black
Oh, that's
Girls.
so cool. The directory.
And I
Wow.
emailed two different therapists. And at first, she was busy. And then one of her clients graduated. And then she wasn't busy anymore. So, excuse me. Yeah, I took her last slot. And it was just immediate for me. So,
Wow.
yeah, but don't be afraid. Like therapists, you don't have to worry about hurting their feelings. This is the job, and
Right.
they get that.
It's like
And
dating, right? It's kind of
yeah,
understood that you're going to date around until you find the therapist you have
right.
the best chemistry with. Yeah.
And everybody can't be for everybody, which is why
Right.
part of what I'm trying to do is to get more Black people into this side of things, because therapy is overwhelmingly white. I think like 87% of therapists are white.
Oh shit. Wow.
Yeah. So and not enough of them, even though they should be um, thinking about the intersections where their clients live. Like white therapists in particular really have to be mindful of the ways that they perpetuate biases and things like that. And really, when you're working with any group that you don't share an identity with, you need to be careful about the way you're talking to people, that you're not further traumatizing them while they are in therapy. So I just want to get, more, but this is going way deep and not at all what
No,
you were
no,
talking
no.
about.
No,
But
I love this. This is why I leave it to where it needs to go because it's important
oh,
conversation. And I
the
told you my
vibes.
mom, it's the vibes,
It
Crissle. I
is.
told you my mom was, it took forever to convince her. And she finally was like, I'm going to do it. Gets a therapist, and it was a white man.
Oh,
I don't know
Christ.
how that happened.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
But mom's older, so I doubt that she really like did the research on the internet. It's a little harder.
Yeah.
She probably did it through some retirement plan, something through work, and that's just who they threw her in with, and she came home, and I remember I asked her how it went, and she was like, I just felt judged. I felt like he was condescending, and then it was hard for me because my mom being an immigrant, she has experienced so much of that here. So sometimes it's true, but I have also seen it where it's not happening, but she's like so traumatized and has so much PTSD where she'll project it on certain people. So I did not want to invalidate her experience at all because I wasn't in the room. But it just made me sad that like she finally, agrees to get this help, and then it's just shitty. And that really sucked.
Yeah.
So I hear what you're saying about like the need for us to be in these spaces so that we can provide perspective and really hold space in a way that people feel safe with their people.
Yeah. Your mother may have had a different experience if the therapist was like an older Dominican woman.
You know what I'm saying? Like how
May
they would
have
have
been
connected.
very different.
Oh my goodness. She probably
If
still
they
be
could
there
speak
to this
Spanish
day.
in the session.
Even that, because my mom speaks English, but it's not her native tongue. So there's a lot that gets lost in translation with her trying to express, her range of emotions. So yeah,
it
just
may have been different.
The thought of that.
It really may have, and it may be, like you said, it may just be some internal blocks. It may be something she has going on where it's like
hard to tell. Yeah,
I already don't really want to open up, and so the fact that this white man is not making me feel comfortable is like, we absolutely getting out of here.
Right?
So
she shut that down day one,
real quick,
and then never went back. She never tried again. So
that's
that
what
made
I'm
me
saying.
sad. Yeah,
she didn't try to find somebody else. That's like, ooh.
Yeah.
Don't know that you were super. I mean, but the thing about therapy is you have to want it.
Right.
You do.
It can't be something that the people around you tell you need. Yeah. It's true.
Not like other forms of medical care where somebody can treat you without your cooperation.
Right.
Like you have to be willing to do this work, and there is a lot of work. And it is
and that's
not
the part
easy.
too that I think people don't realize that this is a lot of work on your end. It's not like you just come into the session, dump, and then as soon as the door closes, that was your therapy for the day. This is like daily integration
girl
of what's happening in that session, and you have to like really process and integrate. Can you talk to us a little bit about, I guess obviously you can't share your specific work, but like what are the things that, what is the work when people talk about therapy?
Well, when I talk about doing the work in therapy, I'm talking about unlearning the habits that have served you in times of trouble, in times of trauma, but that are now working against you. So like for me, a lot of the defense mechanisms that I built up in childhood was in direct response to like growing up in an environment with a father who emotionally unstable is a kind way to put it.
Hello.
So there's a lot of things, there's a lot of ways that I learned to be constantly on edge, like constantly walking on eggshells, being super mindful of other people's mood and energy, because not being mindful of an energy shift could mean that you say something that you thought was
That's
innocent
true.
and that person took it the wrong way, and now you're getting screamed at or thrown around or whatever else. So for me, it's been when I talk about the work, I mean, like, when I started to realize, because when I first went to therapy, it was because of my relationship that ended a few years ago, ended in domestic violence. And I was just not able to get back to my life. I just could
Mm-hmm.
not seem to do anything other than eat pizza and drink. I was not capable of doing anything else. And
Relatable
so,
content.
yeah. And so once I worked through the trauma around that breakup, I had never been in a domestic violence situation before. So that really fucked me up. But after that, I thought, oh, okay, well, I got past this breakup, I'll be okay. And it was like what it revealed to me was like the choices that I made to not just be in the relationship, but to stay in it despite like red flags and
Mm,
gut feelings.
you're
The
talking to
choices that
me.
I made, yeah, to stay anyway were a direct result of a lifetime of truly believing that my experience didn't matter as much as somebody else's. Because that was true
Wow.
for me as a kid. What I felt did not matter compared to what my parents felt. It was simply not something that was considered or prioritized in comparison to their feelings and what they wanted, both of them. So,
Right.
so I just unlearning that, like letting go of so much of the foundation of my childhood, because a lot of it was really corrupt and came from people who were not emotionally available to themselves, so they could not be
Mm-hmm.
emotionally available to me. That has been so difficult.
And what's a way that you've learned to work through those specific emotions of like, this hypervigilance that I had to live in as a
Mhm.
child. I'm safe now.
Yep.
I'm the parent. This home
Yep.
is safe. Like, what are the ways that you work through that? What is the actual process?
So for me, it's a lot of talking to myself. When I
Mm.
get triggered, first of all, identifying the triggers and then being like, oh, that's what a trigger is. It's like when this happens and it takes me back emotionally, psychologically to a place that is not right now.
Like time
It's
travel,
This
literally.
is where the woo-woo shit comes in. It's
Hello.
also very
Hi.
helpful. Listen, I've told you this before. The woo-woo shit is not to be dismissed. It is
I think
very
it works
real.
well
It does.
together. Like it
It
should be
does.
integrated into therapy. I actually love the therapists I know that are woo-woo hoes because I feel
Mhm.
like they see the world in so many different ways,
Yeah.
and can offer like extra, almost supplemental practices on top
I
of
feel
the
like
science.
I feel like the science kind of needs the woo-woo hoes to push them
Agreed.
into more of a holistic direction. And the
Mm-hmm.
woo-woo hoes need somebody to be like, okay, but let's run some tests. Let's run some
Right.
experiments.
Let's
Let's
get
get
this
some
jotted in a
data.
book.
Cause you girls, y'all will have us drinking dandelion tea
Yes, we
and
would.
and being like, that's all you need for your BPD. It's like, nope. Nope, that's not it.
That is so funny. No, but
So
yeah,
yeah,
I love this. I
I feel
love that
like
you mentioned talking to
yeah.
yourself because,
Oh yeah, I have to.
oh my goodness, like, and even one thing I do, I journal a lot, but I have a journal that it's like I call it a burn book
Oh
because I'll
yes.
write down everything and then the pages are made out of some kind of seeds or something where you can burn it with ease.
Or just eat it,
Or
whatever you have
or
going
just
on.
eat it or plant it. No, but all jokes aside, journaling, I know that like it's something that people bring up a lot, like make sure you journal
Mhm.
your feelings, but it really is helpful, especially in moments for me where I'm in the trigger
Mhm.
and I know that I may say something that's not necessarily coming from who I am now, or I just may take it in a direction. Once you get in a trigger, if you don't catch it,
Yep.
You'll be slumped
You
for
get
however
swept
long.
away.
Okay, the trigger will just take you where it wants to go, which is you're at the mercy of your emotions, and that's like a dangerous place to be, especially when you do have
Yeah.
a lot of trauma, because then you'll be time traveling every day,
That's
literally.
right. And that is, I mean, that is what so many of us are
Do
doing.
yeah.
I think about triggers like waves, where you either know how to ride the wave and it'll be
I love that
over
visual.
in a minute or two, or you get caught right up in that hole and you get swept away to wherever else it's gonna take you. So, I mean, journaling is great. It is. I don't do it regularly though.
Same.
And
I
I
don't do
feel
it every
like
day.
I feel like it's partly because, I'm in school, I'm writing all the damn time. I don't really want to sit down and that's
And
another
write
thing.
more.
I physically write in the journal. I don't type. I feel like if I typed, I might do it more often. 'Cause it's just something about writing by hand I don't really want to do, but it makes a
Yeah.
difference also.
It does, because it's like the physical aspect of just getting it
Yeah.
out. Yeah.
And I can see how my handwriting changes depending on my mood.
I just
So
okay.
going back through my, oh God, alignment. What
No, you
happened?
know how me and you have this weird
We do.
thing. Crystal and I, for the woo woo people, our birth charts, because I know some
Oh
people are gonna be
yeah.
like, "You're
They're like,
what?" Our
yep.
birth charts are damn near identical, except for our big three. So we have a lot of life experiences that just line up in the eeriest ways, and just even some of our thought processes. But I just had that convo because I do write a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And whether it's prepping our episodes or writing my journal, I'm someone that writes like physically. I don't really type on
Mm-hmm.
the computer, and I know where my mental health is based on how my handwriting
Oh
looks.
yes. Oh
Like,
yes.
it is very clear outside of like your apartment or your bedroom or the usual things. My
Mm-hmm.
handwriting it lets me know where I'm at.
Yep. Yep.
The neater
It
and more
definitely does.
intentional it is, I know I'm on my P's and Q's. When it starts getting to the side a little bit,
Girl. So yeah, I feel like journaling is so helpful.
really,
And
really
I
though.
wish, yeah, no, it because it really helps to process your thoughts on paper. But after so much therapy and so much time in therapy school, I'm definitely at a place where I can get triggered and be like, okay, you are at home, you're a grown woman, you are
Mm,
safe here. Nobody can punish you. You are not in trouble. There will be you're not gonna get a whooping.
right, right.
Like there is nobody has that power over you anymore. So it's very much like, because I've always been kind of like a caretaker for other people's emotions.
Mm.
And so if other people are upset, I've always felt like, oh, let me hurry up and try to fix this, because that served me as a child, does not
And that's
serve
a
me as an
hard
adult.
habit, super hard habit to break.
It
Even
is.
in your friendships, I've had
Mm-hmm.
to learn that, like, because I'm in a similar background of caretaking
Yeah.
adults. Sometimes your friends just want to vent. They don't want
Yep.
a solution. They don't need you to fix nothing. Even in your
Mm-hmm.
romantic relationships, like, letting your partner have a range of emotion and being
Yeah.
okay with that, and realizing that that's their experience, and not necessarily needing you to come swoop in
Yep.
and fix some shit, and it's
And this
really
is a thing I
hard.
need to do. I need to do that for
Mhm.
myself. I need to take
Right.
myself out of that role.
Because a lot of times it's also a form of avoidance. I've
Mm,
experienced that for myself, where
it definitely can
I
be.
yeah, I turn on the caretaking identity, but it's also a lot easier to just avoid myself and the things
Yep.
I'm going through. And then you get to
Yep.
be the quote unquote good Samaritan that helps everyone. But it's like, okay, when was the last time though that you sat and asked yourself
Yeah.
how you're
Turn that mirror on
feeling?
yourself, Miss Girl.
Okay,
To the point where when I first started doing this in therapy, when I first got to the wait, I have childhood wounds. Like,
we're like,
which
oh,
in hindsight is hilarious because, like, bitch, obviously, but
that's why you're here.
yes. But when I got to that place, there was a lot of, like my therapist asking me how I felt in any given situation, like really felt outside of what I thought I needed to do for somebody else. And I could not answer. I was like, it was like, what are your desires? What are your feelings? What are you really, what do you really want out of this situation? I have no idea what my role is besides like the support for everybody else, because I
Wow.
was the emotionally support daughter.
Mm-hmm. Oh
That
my
was
God.
me. I was the emotional support daughter, the
Mm-hmm.
oldest, the
Go
only
ahead and put a
girl.
vest on
Yep.
me, right?
Yes. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't remember what we were talking about, but
Yeah,
that
just
was
the
that was real.
caretaking aspect and
Yeah.
how it takes you away from what you need to do for yourself.
Yeah,
Now,
so yes, that was another thing. I had to remind myself like other people, just like you're in charge of managing your feelings, they're in charge of managing theirs. And if they need help or support, they can say that and you can offer it, but you don't have to like, because I definitely used to be the type to be like, no, you're not okay. You say you're okay and you don't want to talk about it, but you're clearly okay. So like, just talk about it. Like, just let it out. Blah, blah, blah. Like, leave
mm-hmm.
people alone, let them process, and trust that they will come to you if they want or need your help. And otherwise, you worry about you because there's a lot going
Yep.
on with you. So you just
Right.
stay over there.
You have enough work cut out for you over
I
here.
do.
So
I do.
let's stay
It's
here.
become more and more clear to me that I have my
Right.
own business to mind.
Right. And it's funny
Yeah.
because we when was it? Maybe last year did like a really incredible shroom journey.
We
And
did.
in my experience of it, the theme that kept coming up was go back to your experience.
Mm-hmm.
And it was it kept saying it in my head. So I was like, I to this day have not gotten it out. And even through that shroom journey, I noticed like I'd be in my space going through what I'm going through, and then I'd look over and I see Jade distressed or something, and immediately
Mm-hmm.
want to pull out, because it's just
Yep.
our nature. I don't even know if it's our nature, it's our nurture, I should say, to just like jump
Could be.
out.
Yep.
Right? Who knows? And but the voice was like, nope. Go to
Mm-hmm.
your experience. She's having her own. She'll figure it out, which is exactly what happened,
Right.
and that was just so profound for me. It's very
Mm-hmm.
simple. Go back to your experience. But I have said it to myself when I see that caretaker wound start to activate.
Yeah.
Now I just say that over and over, almost like, some type of affirming of myself. And it really,
Yep.
really does help. Like I know people hate things like affirmations or even having to talk to yourself and trying to recalibrate your inner voice, because I know they say a lot of your inner voice is bits and pieces of people around you that you grew up with, and what they used to
Mm-hmm.
say or how they used to feel about you. And even trying to
Yep. It is.
retrain that voice is very challenging, but it does happen. It does work.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a full testament that my inner voice has completely changed. Like
Mine
my inner
too.
voice, yeah, it has its moments, obviously, but for the most part, I can truly
Mm-hmm.
say that I love the way that I speak to myself these days. Like I will
Oh.
nurture myself in the sweetest ways. I love how even when I get knocked down, the voice doesn't beat me down while I'm already there. It's very like, it's
Yeah.
okay. Like it's like you would if you had a child,
Right.
And that's where this whole inner parenting conversation kicks in.
Yes.
Why would you
And that
speak to your child
is
that way? You wouldn't. You just wouldn't.
right.
And we do it to ourselves. It's like fascinating.
Yeah, for me, it always like my therapist will be like, let's just pretend you're talking to your nephew this way. Or,
Okay.
and
Got you right in the heart.
that always fucks me up because I'm like, I would never, because he's a sweet baby
Ever.
and I am an adult trash bag. So, like, don't do that. And she's like,
You know what I'm
nope,
saying?
nope, 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 nope. You almost had it.
She's like, there's literally no difference,
Yeah.
like that is you. You're that sweet baby
Right.
that needs that love, that
Yep.
attention, that kindness, that support, and it's important to learn how to show that to yourself through moments of distress, which I get is very hard because distress is where all the old shit comes up and you want to go into your old habits. But
yeah, the more you work on it, the better it gets. But it is a slow process, especially,
right.
I mean, it's different for everybody, but for a lot of us, our inner voice is the way our parents talk to us.
Mm-hmm.
is the way our parents showed compassion, showed love, showed empathy, showed grace. It's the way they judged us. I lived under impossible standards. And double standards on top of that, because things were different for the boys than they were for the girls.
Of course.
So I just internalized this idea that I had to be better than everybody else. I had to do more, be more successful, get the highest grades, have the longest Easter speeches even. Like I had to have more work, and more could be expected of me because of who I was supposed to be, who they said I was going to be. So I gave myself those same impossibly high standards. I beat my own ass when I, made a B instead of an A on a test. I cussed myself out, because that is what they gave me. So
you took over for them.
Yeah, that is what you do. And I just, man, I have so much I have so many thoughts about parenting and how I just feel like people do not take it as seriously as they should. Like what you are doing, molding another person, like teaching them how to experience the world and how to talk to themselves. That is just so, I can't think of a job that is more monumental than that. And I feel like people just be having kids like it's what they're like, it's just what they're supposed to do. It's like, man, so, but I'm not judging or anything. I'm just saying I want people to understand like what you're doing as a parent. This
How
is
serious
huge work.
of a role. Yeah. Do you think is this why? Because I know you and I are similar when it comes to our thoughts on having children. We have kind of been on the fence. And granted, we're busy. I know there's like so many reasons why, but do you think knowing that about like how serious it is, the trauma we've endured because of it, like, is that why you've been on the fence, you think?
Yeah, that's a huge part of the reason. Because like I don't want to have kids until I feel like I am a good parent to myself.
Quote.
And as of right now, I am not there.
That's why I be feeling crazy. I'm like, I know I'm 40 and obviously people have kids whenever they want, but I'm like, I don't necessarily feel ready.
Yep. And
I
that's
don't
real.
feel ready. I just don't. It's hard to say that. Yeah.
Like I just started taking care of myself when I was 35. Like I just started this. I've been a mother for 4 years and it still sucks. Like I'm still learning how to. So what I'm really working on right now in therapy is compassion, because we literally just talked about this last week. I have done so much work around my fucking childhood. Like so much work.
Right. And there's so much more to go.
And now I feel like what I am really working on, like this giant hurdle for me, is being compassionate for myself for what I'm feeling, what I'm experiencing, what I'm doing, who I am right now in the moment. That is extremely difficult for me to do. And so when I catch myself being very nitpicky about me, being mean to myself, that sort of thing, I am able to take myself out of that and be like, stop being such a bitch.
Right.
I don't deserve that. I'm just a human having a human experience. Like, be nice to me. You act like I'm out here shooting people. And you like, leave me alone. Yeah, leave me alone.
With our trauma, it could be a lot worse. Like, we are relatively good people considering.
You gotta throw that relatively in there.
Because, ain't no perfect, but
I honestly think without therapy, I don't know. I think there's a great chance I would have died or been committed to some kind of rehab facility.
Completely understandable.
Over the past few years, because the substance use disorder.
Hi.
Oh, it's been bad. It's been bad.
I told you my mom would find bottles under my bed, and she'd be like, "Did you drink all of this?" I'd be like, "What?" Yes.
Yes, I did.
Times are hard, man.
Yeah, ask yourself why I feel
Why?
like what am I trying to escape? What are
Mm-hmm.
these feelings that I'm trying so hard to not feel? Because they suck. But
They
you get
do.
to a place where you realize that like all the things I'm doing to avoid those feelings don't actually make those feelings go away. They just take me out of it in the moment, which is helpful. I'm not going to lie.
I
It
mean, I had to have
helps.
compassion for myself because, I've
Yeah.
been having a hard month, and the first week, well, like my friend had passed, and the first week of that,
Yeah.
my vices kicked up because it was
Oh,
that
yeah.
feeling of this is unbearable for me. And I didn't
Hmm.
even feel like I had the capacity because it wasn't just the personal things that were going on, but then you try to escape through social media
Oh,
and
no.
you can't, not now. I mean, not
No,
ever, but really not now.
not
Like we're
now.
going through the craziest
Right.
couple months or year or
Everything is
whatever.
hell.
Everything is the upside down, and so you
Hmm.
start feeling closed in a way. And I have noticed that I've kind of leaned into a couple of my vices that and I was beating myself up about that, especially me, that I'm like, I know better. I
Hmm.
know wellness. I know when I'm at my best. I know what my body needs. And so for me to choose to mistreat myself this way, I was like really hard on myself for that. But then I had to also be like, girl, life is hard sometimes, and
Yep.
journaling is not always gonna cut it right now,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
being kind to myself, because yes, I had a week or so of mistreatment, but then I also turned a corner when I was ready to, and then got back to like, I know when
Yeah.
I eat a certain way I feel better, when I'm on a sleep schedule I feel better, let me clean my house, and then those things kicked in, and just being
Hmm.
kind to whatever resources I choose to tap into and when, like
Yeah.
we're figuring it out, and that's okay. And being
Yeah.
okay with that.
So I love that because that's part of the compassion that I am trying to give to myself. For me, it's like, okay, girl, it's been years of you using your vices to get through this. Like
Right.
after
Let's try
my
something different.
yeah, after that breakup, the domestic violence incident, like I have not been the same.
Mm-hmm.
And it has been a slow, slow, slow journey to try to not just deal with that and get back to a place of like, being more mindful about what I eat or what I drink or exercising or taking care of myself, like physically in that way. I have done so much emotional work, so much like psychological work. And I told my therapist like several times that there were sessions where I would come home and immediately pour me a drink.
I
Cause
mean,
like
door ain't even closed yet.
I'm in the car on the way home thinking like how much tequila is left in there.
Okay, and do I need to grab more?
Okay. Because that can be done. And then the
Okay.
pandemic, oh my God.
Come on. That's what I'm like. It's like the walls were closing in.
Yeah. The pandemic hit and nothing was open except the liquor store. So I went to the fucking liquor store.
And we had our little pod of liquor because it was me, you,
Yes.
and Jay trying to
Yes.
survive the pandemic.
It was a line to get into Fine Fair like it was the damn club.
All
And
the
so
shit
I
that
went and
we've
got me
been
something
through.
to drink, It was like, but compassion. We are humans having a human experience. We are doing our best. And as we learn and grow, we change those things. Like I am taking better care of myself. But even now, it is a slow process. And I'm learning to be like, you know what? That is okay. Because whose timeline are you on?
I
There's
mean, that's a
nobody
big
for me to
one.
impress here.
Okay, this is,
So
and we're a work in progress. I feel like we're going to be under construction for the rest of our lives, because
mhm.
one thing I've learned with healing, and I feel like we've talked about this before, is like it's not linear. It's not
Oh
like,
no.
oh, I learned this, now I'll never do it again, and I learned this, I'll never do that again. It's like,
I
no.
wish.
You're going to learn some shit, you're going to integrate it, and then a month later totally forget, fuck it up. It's like, it's okay.
It's
It
a
happens.
practice.
Mm-hmm.
Like the more you keep coming back to these healthier coping mechanisms, the more you keep coming back to being able to ground yourself, to calm down that inner child who has been triggered by whatever is going on. The more aware you are of your feelings and what takes you to that place, what people or situations take you back to a place that feels chaotic for you emotionally, it's like the more you do that work, then the more it's like, okay, I'm finna have one glass of wine and then I'm gonna be on my woo-woo shit and I'm finna steam some beans or something. Like
it's really
or whatever you do.
it's being resourced. You know, I view it as a closet where it's like the more I add to it, then when triggers hit, you know, and I open the closet, I have more options, you know, and even if I do go back to the drink or the can of whatever it is, there's always that closet that I know is there. And sometimes you will go into that closet and pick a better, I won't even say better, but just an option that might be healthier. Like something
that serves you in a longer lasting way. Because the thing about our vices is that they do take care of the problem in the moment. And sometimes that is all you need.
A little respite.
Especially like I have been dealing with depression for a long time. And when you just want a break from the damn depression, what do so many of us do? Drink a depressant.
Ain't that something? Let's
we
just drink be in alignment.
because in the moment you feel great. But what it does to you afterwards may make the situation even worse. So when you get to a point where you're like, I see you bottle of wine, but I'm not finna fuck with you right now. I'm finna go into, I don't want to sound too much like a therapist, but I'm finna go into my toolbox.
Come on.
And pick something else. I'm finna read a book or go outside, touch some grass like the kids say. I'm finna, text my friends. I'm finna, just something else to get me through the temporariness of these feelings. Because that's another thing. Like these feelings, if you just sit, observe them, again, that's what the girls in meditation say, and everybody just like, it's so cliche. But literally,
it's true.
When you get to a place where you can do that, where the feelings aren't running you, and you can just look at them like little emails, little pieces of information saying, ooh, that thing that just happened, that reminded us of when we were 11 years old and we were going through this. Ain't that crazy? You could be like, Shirley is girl. And then mark her as red and move on.
And we have proof of that, because think of how many things felt like the end of the world when you were experiencing them. And now you can look back and you have obviously you still remember it. It still has, it's a thought bubble, but it doesn't have an emotional charge in your body. There's certain people and relationships that I can see them now and completely be aware of what our experience was, but I don't feel the same things. There's no trigger, nothing kicks up, and that feels good because it's a reminder, like you said, if you just sit through those temporary feelings, they will pass. But I think too, this whole thing about like time heals all wounds, I don't necessarily always agree with that, because time can pass. And look at our parents. A lot of time has passed in their lives and their wounds are still there. It's like there's a place and time for time. Yes, it will help. But I also think we have to be intentional about what you're doing during that time to tend to those wounds. No?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I think time heals all treated wounds. But you do have to treat it.
That's the missing word, okay?
Yeah.
Because a
time
cut
will heal
left
a wound
untreated,
that has been cleaned, and
a cut left untreated is going to have an infection. It's going to have scabs. It's going to leave, but if you sit with it, like, what can I put in it so that it won't scar? Like, that's the difference to me, because there are a lot of times where I thought, I'll get over this. I just need to let time pass. And I did let time pass. And though I'm not as triggered, it's now like on a cellular level in a way. It's like it's in there now. It's part of a story that I can tap into when days aren't good. And that's the work that Crissle was saying you have to do, of like sifting through those emotions. And that's why with meditation, I actually did a video about this on YouTube. Shout out to those of you who remember my YouTube. This was years ago, maybe 2013, about how meditation for me isn't just about like sitting, with your knees crossed on a cushion and seeing nothing. For me, it's more of a fishbowl where I'm seeing everything, actually. And that's how I experience meditation. And maybe there's levels to it, and that's just where I've been. But I want to sit and for me, it's like, how can I sit and really tap into all the stories that are floating in my mind? And I view it like a fishbowl. Each fish is its own little narrative, and it goes, floating by, and you can kind of grab a fish and see what this one has to tell you, and really tap into like, what are the themes that are in me? What are the stories? What are the ways that I'm seeing the world? And what can I do to shift the ones that very, very obviously need attention, that need my attention? You know what I'm saying?
And what am I carrying that's not mine?
And which is usually half the damn fishbowl.
I was going to say, for me, it's probably a good 90% of it.
Okay. That's not my fish.
Generational trauma that we inherit from our parents. Like, literally, Black babies being born more stressed.
Oof.
Literally, when you come from a long line of people who had to focus on survival, that feelings shit, didn't nobody have time for that feelings, because feelings will get you caught up in the moment, and you'll think about how messed up this is, and you won't be able to keep pushing forward. Like, feelings meant a lack of survival. So
and feelings didn't put food on the table. Feelings didn't keep the light on.
Never did. Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Singing don't pay the bills, and neither do feelings.
And you know what's hard about that? Our parents now want to have these relationships with us, and I shouldn't speak for everyone's parents, but some parents would love the emotional thread. And Chris is like, drink. And it's like, okay, but we never created this. That's not something that now as an adult, because you want your kid to be your friend, that you just automatically have access to. And then it becomes tumultuous almost, because they like resent you for not viewing them that way or not having that closeness. But it's like, we weren't that ever, and it's sad because you want to understand that your parents were in survival mode and they were doing the quote unquote best they could with what they had. But the reality is we have to face what that created out of us as adults now.
Yes.
Because I am not emotionally attached to you. I don't have that connection, and that sucks, but it's true.
Right. I think there's a few things about that. One is that in adulthood, we can start to look at our parents as like actual human beings who went through their own trauma,
parents.
Messed up, right? And
right.
And you can't teach somebody what you don't know for yourself. So they were never going to be able to give me what I needed emotionally, because they could not give that to themselves. That was not given to them. That was not taught to them. So I can have that understanding now and still say, however, these things really hurt me. And that's where, as parents, it is your responsibility to say, you're right and I'm sorry. Like, I think where it goes from there.
But that's where people
that's
hit
where we
some
hit
walls. Because a parent taking accountability for the ways that they harmed you, it's sad to me how hard it is for that generation in particular. Like, I feel like our generation, and maybe I'm biased because I see my friends as parents and they're just so much better at it.
Oh, yeah.
With the communication and the apologies. And I've seen Jade apologize to Noah.
Oh,
I'm like, wow, apologizing to a 9-year-old. Imagine that. Like, just how that changes everything, and it's sad
apologizing
because, like,
for stuff. Yeah, that I would have never gotten an apology for.
Oh,
yeah.
Come on. You know what I'm saying? And it's
Jay
so
be like, I'm
beautiful.
sorry I raised my voice at you. I'm like, what? You can be sorry for that?
Or like Noah was talking and Jade started speaking over her, and Noah was like, I really don't want you to speak over me. And Jade's funny because she was like, my ego was about to flare up, but she's like, I had to remember, she's right. I shouldn't be speaking over her. I mean, that's common courtesy. And yes, she's lying, but she deserves that as well. And that to me is so profound, because I'm like, the effect that even that empowerment for Noah, what that's going to create for her as she moves through the world as an adult, and
Yeah.
I feel for our parents because clearly, like you said, they were raised by their parents, and then those were raised by their parents. Everyone's kind of passing down the toolbox that don't have no tools in it.
Correct.
And now we
the
are
tools
kind
are
of
alcohol and church.
Okay, and people. And so, we are the ones now that are like, the buck stops here. Like, I'm not continuing this. I can't do it. Someone has to stop this. Like, someone has to, because no one has taken the time. And that's not a judgment, but if we want the future generation of our bloodlines to just have a chance, because I think, considering our childhoods, we've done really well for ourselves. I mean, look at us. We show up every week, even when we don't want to. We have hard days. We're not always the best. But for the most part, we've been doing this, Crissle. Look at we're taking care of ourselves. Like, I'm so proud of us because it could have really gone left very, very easily.
Girl.
We're here.
We're here. Yeah.
It's a lot to be proud of.
Yeah, there is. It can be hard to remember that when I am just trying to get this inner voice to be less cruel to me. But I have really done a lot. I've come a long way. And just to go back to your earlier point about parents and that whole conversation where they're like, oh, we're grown now. We should be friends. We should do this and that. Like, it's like, you didn't lay the foundation for us to be friends.
I would have loved that.
My friends and I have a mutual respect for each other. Like, there's a love and an adoration and a caring for one another. It's reciprocal.
A reverence, and, accountability.
You told me that I could have my feelings and I could do what I wanted to when I was grown and had my own house and paid my own bills. So now that I'm doing that, you're stunned that we're not friends. And it's like, and I think a lot of people say a lot of parents say they want that relationship with their older child, adult child, but they don't want to, or they aren't aware of, like, that is going to take work. Because a lot of them swallowed their feelings and did whatever for their parents because that's what they were supposed to do. Like, you're just supposed to pretend that these people didn't hurt you and traumatize you all your life. Like, they're not still hurting your feelings.
Right.
You can never say that. It's like considered disrespectful to tell your parents that something they did hurt you or upset you. And so they thought we were just being rebellious teenagers with smart mouths. And one day I'll grow up and pretend my feelings don't matter, just like you're doing right now. And it's like, no, lady. It has to stop somewhere.
We ain't going back there. Yeah.
We're not going back to the strip club, Stevie. We're not doing that. Even when Noah came over here and did her little makeup tutorial video, at one point in the video, she rolls her eyes at something that I said.
I saw that.
Yes. And there were a few telling her not to get that makeup on my good chair, which she did anyway. So I was right to warn her. But I got several comments from people who were like, so she just allowed to roll her eyes like that? Oh, I would have beat her ass if she rolled her eyes at me like that.
Yeah, she gets to have feelings.
She's allowed to be annoyed. You was never annoyed by your mama or aunties? Of course you were, but they would have slapped you for showing feelings, and we don't do that. Because what she doesn't do
wild to think about.
It's not like she cusses me out. She doesn't like, it's not actual disrespect. But for a lot of Black people, as a child, showing feelings that aren't complete reverence for your parents and caregivers is considered disrespectful. And it's like, no.
And
she's allowed to be like,
oh,
my auntie getting on my nerves. Like, she's allowed to feel that way.
Right. And you know what's interesting? I feel like, especially in our communities, in our culture, because there is this, kids are meant to be seen and not heard, or whatever the sayings are. That's why a lot of us don't have relationships with our feelings.
Yep.
And
absolutely.
even, that's a big part of the work I've had to have, especially in romantic relationships where, I've been in positions, because I am so laid back and so chill, I can fall into people pleasing very easily as well, and I have to really be intentional and mindful of when I do that, and be very boundaried, and also tell people like it's okay to have a range of emotions. Like I'm allowed to be pissed. It doesn't mean that the relationship's over or I hate you or I see you differently now. Like, no, humans are going to wake
feelings.
up and have relationships, with different feelings as the days come in. I always talk about the Rumi poem. That's my favorite poem of all time, called The Guest House. But he's like, when you open that door in the morning, you don't know who's coming. It could be a deep sorrow. It could be a joy, but you just have to learn to work with all those. And I think that's one thing I've noticed the most in all my interpersonal relationships, not even just romantic, because it's friendships, it's, with my family, with even in business. It's like the lack of space being held for humans to express whatever it is they need to. People get very scared, very put off.
I kind of get it as far as like the children being seen and not heard thing, because let's be real, children can get very loud.
Like yesterday. We were in our house trying to watch the BET.
Don't let it be more than one of them.
We was like, oh God. Boy. Crissle and I were like, do we want kids? Because I don't know.
Do I? Because y'all's houses are always loud. But like, again, this is part of the responsibility. These are small, they're not little adults.
Right.
They are developing human beings. They are not at your place. And this is what really gets me. A lot of times we grown people feel threatened by children and their emotions. And I think because it's like you said, they weren't allowed to feel their feelings. They had to pretend like mom and daddy didn't just hurt their feelings or make them sad or whatever and go sit. If you had a bad feeling about them, you better go sit somewhere and fix your face and don't come back until you have gotten your face fixed. Like, you're literally not allowed to talk about it. So for children who don't understand that, haven't been taught that yet, they sit there and show you that their feelings are hurt, that you said something that made them mad or sad or whatever else. And for a lot of people, that triggers that in them, like, oh no, somebody shut that down in me and I am going to shut it down in you.
Okay, you don't get to have that, And
that's how y'all end up beefing with 7-year-olds, and it's tragic.
And hating them.
Hating little kids.
Hating little kids.
Because they're free. I don't hate. If anything, I'm jealous of Noah because I wish I had been allowed to express myself the way that she is. And it's not, I mean, there are times where I'm like, oh, this little girl, my God. But it's not like,
she is free.
I don't want to, yes, I don't want to take that away from her. I don't want her to be 35 and just realizing, that she's allowed to be a whole human being. She knows it now. She asserts it now, and she gets that reassurance from both of her parents now that who you are is
and
great.
Gets to walk through the world that way. I think of her in schools when she's older, in business meetings, like in romantic relationships. Like, she is going to have the empowerment that was given to her in childhood to say how she feels, not to hide it.
She doesn't have negative self-talk going on.
You know what
all
I'm saying?
Day. She's not dragging herself and picking herself apart and criticizing herself. Noah thinks she is the shit.
And knows it. Okay. And knows, I love that because...
And no one can challenge it.
Not even Jade.
Especially not Jade. She's not taking no lip from that white woman.
And I love it because think of how much time that saves in Noah's life.
I think about thousands of dollars in therapy that she will not have to spend.
She gets to just live. And sometimes I have to, I think one of the toughest pills to swallow is that people can come in and cause harm, but at the end of the day, it is your job to fix it. And that is probably one of the most angering aspects of life, because it's like, God damn, I came out the gate free, a baby with a clean slate. And then all these people got to project and decide things for me. And now I have to take myself out of all those identities and projections and, all that harm. And it seems it's really hard to not feel like that's unfair as fuck sometimes.
Oh, it is unfair.
You know, it is so frustrating because I'm like, I've spent
It
so
absolutely
much
is.
of my life working on this stuff. And
Oh, yeah.
it's just
resentful.
You know,
I'm resentful that I have to clean up y'all's mess.
Okay.
And y'all don't have to clean up.
And then they get to be around us in this new version that we're like working through. And then they get to be sad because we like aren't trying to be cool like that.
Oh, well, they don't get to be around me, just so y'all know.
You said, hold on now.
No. I live in Nueva York, very far away. Everybody knows I disowned my father a few years ago. My mother and I see each other a couple of times a year. And, you know, it's not even beef with my mama. Honestly, it's an acceptance of where she is and what she can do. And she has been able to apologize, to acknowledge the things she did wrong. There was a whole conversation we had several months ago where she finally got real with me for like the first time in my whole life and was like, you were just this creative little special butterfly of a child and I did not know what to do with you.
Oh my goodness, my
heart. So I just squashed you down. I just tried so hard to control you because I did not know what else to do with you. And I'm sorry. And I know you're going to get past this and you have already done so much work. And it was just this huge, like really affirming conversation that meant a lot. But also that is as far as she can go. She can say it, but she cannot give me the things I needed then. She can't give them to me now. So I do still have to do that work. And it does feel very unfair. I mean, it is unfair.
It is.
It is not fair that we have to do this.
Yeah.
But it's beautiful to grow, to see how much you're changing with the way you're talking to yourself and treating yourself, and then being involved in the raising of other children. It's also very helpful. Like I love when Noah comes over because we get to play dolls. And for my inner child is excited, like, oh, we having our friend come over and we playing with dolls. And we playing with Roblox.
Right.
Noah be like, let's get McDonald's. And I'm like, oh.
For the 9-year-old
food we could eat. Of all the things we could eat, but you know, just being around kids and connecting to that innocence and this wonder and watching them grow, and it's such a privilege, it's such a blessing, and treating her the way I wish I would have been treated. And I have great aunts and all that. I have great extended family. But, you know, just being that support, being that voice. And, you know, I tell Noah, inevitably, your mama's going to get on your nerves. And when she does, you can always call me.
Right? You know where I'm at.
Yeah, always. So work, girl.
And I think what I'm learning is that it's okay to hold complex emotions. Like they can all exist, you know. I don't have to lean into any one side. Like I was watching Couples Therapy. I believe it's on
Lord,
Showtime.
Everybody keeps telling me to watch this show.
Crissle.
Oh my God.
Let me tell you, for people like us that just love the human experience and the way that the mind works, and especially you that you're in school for this, I really, really feel that you're going to love this show. It is so profound. I think if I could create television, this is the type of shit that I would want to be a part of. I'm not really like a television person, but that's what I would create. It's just such great work. And there was one part where it was this couple where the wife was just, I mean, she's just so stuck in the pain that she endured as a child that she's having a hard time staying present in her relationship. And he's like trying everything, but she just doesn't feel loved and she doesn't feel supported. And it's almost like there's nothing he can do to reach those parts of her. And one thing that the therapist's name is Orna. One thing Orna said was to the wife, she said, that part of you that your parents neglected, that they didn't love, that sadness, that emptiness, it's always going to be there. And I thought that was, I feel like, you know, sometimes when you think you're enlightened or evolving, you feel like you're filling in all these gaps and like that's what your job is. But I found it such a relief in a way to hear her say that we're not trying to act like this didn't happen. And the reality is that all the work you're doing to reparent yourself now isn't going to change the fact that that was your reality. That was your foundation. That is what you experienced. And that emptiness and that sadness has a place as well. But you're a human who can hold complex emotions. And while that sadness and emptiness is there, you can also, like Crissle does, play with Noah and have your inner child have fun now. You know what I'm saying? It's the now. It's the like, how do I hold space for the now, for who I am now, for all the children in me, all those ages, the teenager, the toddler, the baby, the, you know, everything, all of those people in me. What do I cultivate in my day-to-day now that makes sure that all those parts of me are seen, that they're all here with me, that they're all safe? Like you said, you're like, I'm home. There's no one's going to hit you. No one's going to hurt you. Like, you're home. And that to me was so simple when she said that. No one's trying to tell you that that sadness is going to go away. And it made me cry. Because I think when you are doing the work, there's this feeling of like, I have to fix myself, you know? But it's the reality that like, no, actually, you're going to hold all of these emotions. They're all real. They're all valid. And that's okay too. Like you're going to be sad. Like that sadness is not going to go away. That's okay. You know, because there's so much more happiness to play with as well. And that was so
managing
profound.
Grief.
Yes.
It's like, you know, the better you get at managing grief, the more it can just be a part of you that you acknowledge. And, you know, depending on how fresh it is, can really bring up, you know, your emotional reaction to it, whether you get in tears just thinking about it or whether you feel far enough away from it where you can just look at it and be like, yep, that was me and that's what happened. But it is still there. It doesn't, reparenting yourself doesn't actually, you don't go back in time and get to pick up yourself as a newborn and fix things from the, like, you don't get to, if only. Girl. But the next best thing is giving yourself what your parents could not. And it is such, I cannot stress enough how difficult the work is. But it is so worthwhile. And so I fully get that feeling of, I think, I haven't seen this episode that you're talking about or the show at all, and I'm really going to watch it. But
please,
it sounds like she was just stuck in this, for me, and I feel like I identified with that, or definitely used to, because I could not accept the unfairness of it all. I could not accept that I was this innocent kid and I had to deal with these people, especially because I definitely fell into a pattern of, well, some people have parents that aren't like that. And some people have parents that were really emotional, available, and understanding.
Like, why me?
Yeah. How come I had to have the parents who didn't give a shit about any of that and, you know, acted like my feelings didn't matter. So, and then the whole like, well, you don't have a choice. This is something we also worked on in therapy. For me, it was like, I had to learn that it's not optional for me to take care of myself. It's not optional for me to learn to speak more gently and to be kinder to myself. Like, of course, you don't have to do the work, but like, do I want to be haunted by this for the rest of my life? Do I want to carry around the trauma and keep behaving in these same patterns? Like, I'm unhappy.
Right.
And if I creating want to break out of that, yes, it's not optional. And so for me, it was being very resentful at the thought of that, because I would just say, well, it was optional for them.
Right.
They didn't have to change when I came along. And she's like, but they should have. I'm like, but they didn't. And we can go back and forth all day, girl. I don't see why I have to do the fucking work when they didn't do it. Like, how
they
dare
got to coast.
Y'all?
Right.
They didn't have to do, this is very difficult. And I don't even have no kids. What you mean I got to do it? Girl, pissed. I was pissed. Right. It took me a long time to accept that. I mean, I battled with that in therapy.
And some days it still comes up. That's why I was saying about health, mental health not being a linear process. Because
no, definitely not.
There are days where I'm still really resentful and I'll cry as if it's like happening now. Because I'm like, God damn, you know, I'm just trying to be free of all of it.
Yeah, all these new age TV shows where the parents are nice to their kids, very triggering for me.
Let me tell you, one day I was in Central Park, and which is so funny how feelings work, right? Because you could just be thinking about something else. And I'm sitting down. This is when I was still in New York, and I actually, when I was in Harlem, and I used to just go for walks in Central Park. I sat on a bench, just catching my breath, probably like a beautiful summer day. And this father is setting up, the soccer, the goal. And he's like setting it up, and he starts playing with his daughter. Obviously, he's like helping her train or whatever. And like she was falling. They were like falling on top of each other and laughing. And I started crying.
Oh, yeah. That would have got me too, girl.
And I was so shocked because I will be the first person to tell you I don't have daddy issues. I don't know him. He was never in my life, which is obviously a lie. But because he was never in my life. So
like,
in my mind, right? I'm the first one to be like, I don't even know him. How could he have affected me? I leaned on that
by not
for
being
years.
there.
Right. That simple, friend. That's
that
actually
abandonment. Yeah. But you don't know until you know.
You don't know until you know. And in that moment, when I saw that father, and he looked so happy and like he just loved his child.
Oh, yeah.
And was just helping her thrive, and clearly was something that was her interest. Granted, I don't know these people. He could be an asshole. Maybe she doesn't want to play soccer. Who knows? But in that moment, the narrative that hit me was that she was a child who was loved and wanted. And my tears, I got up and walked off because I was like, this is mortifying. Like, I'm crying.
I mean, you probably wasn't the only person crying in Central Park that day.
I mean, fair.
That's a great thing about New York. I have had several breakdowns on the train, and nobody bothers me.
Let me tell you, that 2 train has seen tears, honey.
Okay. I am on the 3 heading to Harlem, 135th, and I am sobbing. And somebody's meemaw might pass me a Kleenex, and that is it.
Because New Yorkers are so used to it, they just look at you like, you be all right, kid.
You be all right, yep. Whatever you're going through, we have all cried on the train before.
You know what I'm saying?
I feel you, because that brings up so there are fathers who want to be there. Like, there are parents.
Oh my goodness, beautiful fathers.
Like, there are people who want to spend time with their kids. What?
And you're like, wait, so how come I didn't get that ticket?
Yeah.
I mean, and like, what? Why? I'm such a cool kid.
Children are so egocentric. Literally, they don't understand that the world is not about them. When they are born, they are the center of their universe.
Right.
And they are supposed to be egocentric. They grow out of it, but everything is supposed to be about them. So a father not showing up, a father abandoning you, a father emotionally or physically, psychologically abusing you or neglecting you, that becomes about you. You don't have because these are your parents. These are the authority figures of your life. You don't realize that these are just wounded people in adult bodies coming through.
Children.
And having no idea of what they're doing. So it becomes about you. Something must be wrong with me. I did something wrong. I'm broken.
I wasn't worthy.
Yeah.
It was the idea of that,
I'm
like,
annoying.
wow, I wasn't important enough for him to want to be there. Because it's one thing if him and my mom just couldn't connect, but he was like, that's still my child. You know what I'm saying? But he didn't even do that. He was like, I'm opting out of this whole package here.
And don't let them turn around and take care of some other kids that they have, or grow up and take care of kids later. Because then it's like, oh, so you were capable of being a good father.
You just didn't want me. Hurts even more because my dad went off and got married to a white woman and bought her house, and they had 2 kids and a dog and a picket fence. And I'm in the projects seeing pictures that they would send, Crissle, to my grandparents in the house I lived in still. Seeing, the Christmas pictures that families take and they put it on the fridge, and I'm sitting there like, wow, this
life that you're not worthy of.
This beautiful, contained family.
Yeah. That you don't get to be a part of. Yeah. You don't fit into this. Yeah, that's difficult. I mean, and those are hard feelings to contend with as adults. So as children,
oh my goodness,
it's so painful that the brain comes up with a justification for why this is happening. And unfortunately, if we don't have other adults around to tell us like this is not about you. But even if you do, it is very, very easy to believe that it's about
Yeah.
you, especially at such a young age. So it's just,
And then you create relationships that mirror that dynamic
oh
because you're
yeah,
trying to fix it as an
yep,
adult through other people, and you keep hurting yourself, you know? And
mm-hmm.
it's just the shit that it does for your life is just like,
Yeah,
wow, man. That's our mental health. You know, when I got started on YouTube, and even when I was blogging, it was like, yes, hair, skin, beauty, all these things, but it's like,
mm-hmm.
okay, but what does that mean if you don't feel good? You know, like that was
Right,
always the draw for me. It's like, okay, but how are we feeling outside of like skin, hair, and all this? You know,
mm-hmm.
what are we eating? What's your day to day? Because I was realizing how unhappy I was. Who
Yep,
cared if my body was snatched? I felt terrible.
right,
and I didn't see people talking about what do we do as a community to not feel terrible. And I wanted to just spark that somehow, you know, and I'm so thankful that
yeah,
like all of us in some capacity are putting in the work for our community to just
yeah,
remind people like, hey, I don't feel good either, you know, like you're
yep,
not alone in that. Like, but let's figure out what coping mechanisms we can share, what community. Even now, like this past month, I was sharing on Friend Zone. This is probably the first time ever that I've really told my friends straight up, I don't feel well. I'm not doing good.
yep.
And you guys formed like Voltron around me. You know, it
Of
was like
course.
so beautiful. Constant calls. And now I'm in New York. We've been seeing each other, spending time, and that was even hard for me because I am like a wounded dog where when something happens, I just go die in a corner. I'm not really someone
Mm-hmm.
that calls people. And community is like a big theme for me right now, you know, and I'm so thankful
Yeah.
that to have that. I know a lot of people don't, and that's like hard, you know, but
Oh
we're all
yeah,
trying our best to offer
it
tools. I
is.
know like even with the read and Crissle's couch and because of the information you're learning in school, even your role on the show has shifted a lot, you know, where it's like, yeah, there's
Yeah.
jokes. Yes, there's, you're going to read and to do the pop culture topics, but there's room being made now for you to share, whether it's like things that you're learning in your therapy sessions or just
Mm-hmm.
tools that you're picking up from your classes, you know, and that's so
Yeah,
beautiful.
that's very true. The way I approach, not even just approach things, the way I see things has changed. So like the
Completely.
way I respond to topics, the way I respond
Mm-hmm.
to letters, that sort of thing. Like going through therapy was a huge shift for me. It changed the way that I communicate, and the way I perceived. I realized that I was judging others the same way. No, I was actually being much nicer to y'all than I was being to myself.
Ain't that
as
something?
horrific as that is to consider. Because I would say some very, I mean, I've definitely had my times of saying unfair, heinous things. And
Mm-hmm.
it
We've all
still was
been
a
there.
drop in the bucket compared to what I was saying to myself. So what I'm grateful that I learned to take it easier on everybody else so that I could just be a little bit less of a bitch. And
The same
I'm,
way you're taking it easier on yourself. It's all a
yeah, but that has
reflection.
been a
Yeah.
slower process. It has been easier to allow other people humanity and grace than to do it to myself. But, it's something that I am working on and feeling closer and closer to getting there. And just like I said at the top of this, I'm just ready for that last push where I am
That
on
breakthrough
my friend
moment.
shit and like really consistently. I'm tired of having to correct the initial thought. The initial thought is
Mm.
mean. The initial thought is judgmental and critical, and it's coming from a place that I have rejected in every other aspect of my life. So I just want that initial reaction to be a positive, a happy one. Like I want to be in a better place. And so I'm just working on it, I'm just always working on it. But like you said, like I also don't tend to reach out when I'm really going through it. And,
No.
that's because I learned at an early age that there was not going to be support for me.
And
So
that's where it's
reach out for
coming
what? To
from.
get my feelings hurt
Yeah.
again?
If no one's tending to your feelings, who are you talking to? What are you talking about? Like I learned
Right.
to swallow it and go to my room.
Yeah.
And I still
And
do that now.
not even just not tending to them, but openly saying, girl, get over that. Girl, stop feeling that. Shut
Right.
that
Right.
up. Go on somewhere with that. Don't nobody care. Like,
right.
actively having them dismissed. So of course I grew a hard heart and a tough exterior and developed this reputation as somebody who does not like people. And I'll never forget one time on the show when we first started, Kid Fury said something. We were talking about relationships or something. He was talking about feelings, and I was like, "Get out of those." And he was like, "But it's different for you because you're unable to love."
Oh my God. And then we really like believe that about ourselves and step into that as an identity. Like, yeah, that's just me.
And it served me. I had to be unable to love because I was getting my heart broken at home every day. I had to stop with I was told I was too sensitive for so long that I finally said, the last thing I'm ever going to be is sensitive. Like, nobody is ever going to call me that again. I am finna develop the toughest exterior.
And then we go to the extreme of the spectrum. So now no one can get in. And
all the while, the emotions are still swirling underneath, just waiting on you to stop bullshitting. Okay. But I had to do that. I had to do that to make it through that house. And now, I mean, obviously not now. It started, working against me almost immediately. But
but now that we can't take it no more, it's at that point.
At 35, when I was punishing myself every day for being the victim of a domestic violence incident, I was punishing myself, cussing myself out, saying to myself, I'm going to remind you every single day of what he did so that you never end up in this situation again, and how stupid you were and how you should have done this and this and that.
As if we had anything to do with that.
But that was my foundation.
Yep.
Constantly criticizing myself, being aware of how I could have made a mistake and done something better and everything else. And so the work, girl, undoing all that, letting all that bullshit go, letting myself have feelings and be a person with feelings. Very difficult to like publicly admit, like, yes, I do have feelings and sometimes they do get hurt, but I am just human.
Right.
And I am
going through the motions like everybody else. But here's my last thing too. The paradox of all this trauma to me is that I really like who I am. And it's like this, you know how they say, like, you wouldn't have been who you are now if you didn't experience all those things. And there's a part of that paradox that is so mind-blowing to me, because it's like, that's true. Like, that is the recipe that created Fran, is twisted as the ingredients were. I wouldn't change a thing about myself right now. Like, it's weird, yes, of course I wish I was more loving, and there's certain aspects that like we say with Noah, she's gonna move in the world differently without being held back. But in a lot of ways, it's like it's just very twisted, but I really do love who I am, and I love who I'm growing to be. And it's such a paradox, you know what I'm saying? That's what trauma is so fascinating to me.
I think that's an important place to get to, of being like, all these things happen to me outside of my control. I've done a lot of work to get through those things. And I'm still doing the work, and I don't have to wait
and always will be
until I'm at this idealized place to love and appreciate and value myself. Like, you learn to, you want to get to the place where you feel that way, and you don't realize like the journey is the destination.
That is the place, right?
It is. Like, this is it. It's the day-to-day work. But you kind of have to get to a place where you're like, I really love me, and despite all the bullshit, I think that I'm great and all this, because the alternative is to never accept that these things happened and you are forever changed for it. Like, we'll never know who I could have been if I grew up in an emotionally sensitive home.
If I had that dad with the soccer goal.
We'll never know who that girl could have been. All I can do is make the best of what was given to me. And that's what I'm trying to do.
And this is the girl we do know, and we're trying to do the best to support her through getting to just feel loved and seen and free and supported. And honestly, I'm thankful for you, Crissle, because I love that you... Why am I getting emotional? I love that you... I am. It's been a hard month. You know it.
I do.
I'm just thankful that we just continue to show up. And it's hard. There's some days where I'm like, shit, bro.
Yeah.
But we continue to show up, and I'm thankful for you. I'm thankful for the work. I'm thankful to have friends that care this deeply about just being free and better people. And I love you.
Me too. I feel like the universe really brought us together, and I am eternally grateful. I say all the time that like my friends are my family, and
oh my God, my lifelines.
I just value each of you so much. Like these connections mean everything to me, and I love you, girl. I'm not going nowhere.
So much. I'm not going nowhere. And you know
I ain't going nowhere. You ain't going nowhere. Not you got me crying on the Patreon.
Thank God it's a paywall. I don't like crying on the internet. But Crissle, thank you so much for stepping into
friend.
the woo. This was exactly what I thought it was going to be. It always is.
Of course it was. I should have known.
We did good though. We didn't cry till the last minute.
Till the very end.
I love you.
Get me out of here. Love you so much, friend.
Love you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, please. Thank you for sharing your stories, your gift, what you're learning, everything. We appreciate your openness and vulnerability because we know that the internet is not a safe space.
Oh,
but
no.
we push through anyway because we know that somebody is going to listen to this and feel connected, and it's going to give them what they need today, right now. And that's why we do this. So thank you, those of you listening. This was episode 13 of The Woo, and I will catch you guys next time. Love you. Bye.